Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart, black mind, black end again. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Shortly after Megan Thee Stallion was shot in the foot, I wondered why Tory Lanez would shoot her in the first place. As I thought, well, a normal man doesn't just shoot women in the foot. Granted, I don't know much about Mr. Lanez. And I also wondered if she would ever have been with him had he not been the type to shoot her in the foot. Witnesses later said that she was beating up on him at the party and he shot her in the foot in self-defense. And we all heard about this and said, oh, okay, so that explains it. So he's not just some villain, he had to be hit first. And this sounds reasonable to most of us, and we believed it because most of us are reasonable. Niggas that shoot women in the foot without needing to do it, in other words, without being attacked or seeing her attack someone else, are very rare. Niggas in general are really not the majority of black people. Yesterday, a black Muslima from the Gulf Coast referred to the incident and how Megan shielded her man from the cops and from blame, but she can't get shielded. How she gave him a pass for shooting her, but black men wouldn't give her a pass for getting shot in the first place. And I agree. It is not okay to go comparing black women to men based on phenotype. By the same token, you don't want to present yourself as one either. I immediately contributed to the knowledge I had at the time, which was that the witnesses said that she boxed him at a party and he fired back in self-defense. I didn't tell her or the other people in her comment section this information to be mean, but to be fair and accurate. That's the information I had. She and her friends, including a white feminazi non-Muslim named Helen, started arguing with me and started to make assumptions about why I even shared the information to begin with. Of course I responded. Then I looked up the information to see where Megan said this, and that's when I found the tweet where she confirmed that it was in fact Lanez that shot her, either in the car or from the car as she walked away. Thing is, she said that he and his team made her out to be the bad guy in the situation, and apparently they did. See, I learned that she was not at the party while she was boxing him up, as I previously read the witnesses say. I was under the impression that they were at the party. She started boxing me, shot her in the foot, and later on they left. Apparently, no, they were in the car, and he shot from inside. Whether she was in or out walking away, whatever the case was, he shot from inside. Now, I would think he would have stuck his arm out to do it, and the shell casings would have fallen somewhere else, but no, they were in the car. I also learned that Tory Lanez's bodyguard was in the car at the time. So that means that she wasn't just beating up on him, even if she's physically capable of it. She wasn't just beating up on him, because he had a bodyguard and he had a pistol. The bodyguard wants to get paid and not lose his job and get a bad referral, so it's safe to say Lanez was not getting whooped. Now, I'm not exonerating Lanez unless he wasn't the one that shot her. And his defense can say that it wasn't him because she said she was walking away. And if she was not facing him when the shot was fired, then she didn't see who actually shot her. They can say it wasn't him. The defense can argue that. The judge will decide. The evidence will decide. Either way, I learned that she was not shot for being violent with a man this time. This time, she may not be a victim as far as personality conflicts go, but as far as the violence go, it appears she was the victim. So I have to amend my judgment until further information. I learned something new. And so I went back to the thread and I told the ladies, listen, I was unaware of the tweet, and I was unaware of the presence of Lanez's bodyguard, and I couldn't find any evidence or reports of Lanez having any injuries when he was arrested for the gun charge. So it doesn't appear that she was shot in self-defense, even from outside of her tweet. So I stand corrected. I maintain she confessed to hitting a man in Texas while in college, and that's what gave credibility to what the witnesses in California said when she got shot in the foot. So I'll give you ladies in this thread time to see me write this right here, where I admit to my prior ignorance, and then I'll take down my comment above. I said this because after all, fair is fair, and I'm not blaming any woman or man for things they didn't do. If she did not assault and provoke lanes, then damn, she just didn't do it, and that means that he or the shooter fired wrongfully. This does not mean that it is not a war. Understand this, gentlemen. The war is still on. See, lanes became the representation for all black male behavior in North America, even in the eyes of black women. Helen, the hypocrite, told the Muslima I know that same thing, that I represented black male hatred of black women. So I looked up Helen and found out she's big as a house with a baby daddy smaller than she is, with all sorts of social justice posts on her page, which I would normally support according to the apparent meaning of the words social justice. I don't have a problem with actual social justice. Who has a problem with justice except the unjust? And she has a pride in driving away men that don't even start off as her enemy to begin with. She told me that. She took me as an enemy when I wasn't, and she said she took pride in driving away men like me. Right after she said something about the men the men that women like her were driving away going to Southeast Asia. And I said, so you brag about this, but then you say that the men that are going off to Southeast Asia are weak. By the way, where's your baby daddy from? Because see, when I looked and she was holding a baby, the man in the pictures with her looked mighty much like a Southeast Asian. So if she took me as an enemy when I wasn't trying to be one, how long will she be with her baby daddy? If she says that Western men that marry Southeast Asian are doing it because they're weak and they're control freaks, then why is she with a Southeast Asian who's smaller than she is? Maybe he's not from Southeast Asia, but another part. Maybe he was born in the West and he's culturally speaking, Western. Nonetheless, something's odd. See, there's this hypocrisy going on. And I'm not knocking the man because he had no social media account on that same platform, and not that I could find. And so he may really not know how she is online. Keep in mind, she's big as a house, and she's got this attitude. This is hypocrisy. If Western men have to stay with Western women like her, with her weight and her attitude, and that combination, both of which are bad, then she has to stay and wait for a Western man who can tolerate her attitude, and on top of that, literally on top, her excessive weight. And keep in mind, she ain't gonna gain weight like a sister would. I wonder what her man thinks is wrong with him that he settled for her. However, while she assumed that I shared the first witness statements because I couldn't get none, she also said it's wrong for men to speak about not being interested in women as if it's some sort of penalty for women because women's value lies in other things, not in their appeal to men. Of course, I say women's value lies in whatever they develop. Wherever they develop it, the same as in men. Part of that is in the appeal to the opposite gender. And it's the same for men. She didn't know what I looked like. Yet she went straight to me being a non-select man that was ugly, couldn't get none, that kind of thing. This was because I merely answered her assertion that Western men were going to South Asia because they're weak, by explaining to her that they were tired of Western women, period, because of the mutual exclusivity of what Western women not only want, but actually demand and expect from men. She's still a hypocrite. And another lady named Kalima, well, she's downright illiterate. She responded with GIF files to my comments while ignoring that I specified that I'm against all violence between genders, period. See, to this feminism camp, it's wrong to be against women hitting men. And it's necessary to be against men hitting women. So you have to agree with the double standard that women can hit men and men cannot hit women. You can't be against intergender violence. You have to be only against men hitting women. Ironically, I'm actually more for marriage without the state's approval, of course, and marital sex between the genders. And this was also insulting to them because to them, most men don't deserve any kind of heterosexual satisfaction anyway. The issue is that whatever a man says is wrong. And this is the difference between women's rights and feminism. She's not for women's rights, Kalima nor Helen. They are for women's privilege at men's expense. And this is why I ask Allah to curse their hands and tongues unless they repent of their stances and hypocrisy before he chooses to implement this. Because while I don't advocate oppression, they advocate oppression of men even if they don't realize it. In the end, the wicked witches of the West are the ones who are difficult, not we men. As I've said, what we need to take accountability for is making these things too damn easy. They took us as enemies even when I admitted that I learned something new about the Lane shooting case that I didn't know before and was willing to amend my stance. I only admitted this to them for two reasons, though. The first is because Allah commanded Muslims to speak the truth even against ourselves or our loved ones. Fair is fair. The second reason is because it would be a test for them, a litmus test. Helen failed partially, but Kalima failed 200%. The black Muslima failed more than the white disbeliever. Gentlemen, Megan Thee Stallion has one lesson to learn, and that is to stop choosing guys that fit these negative stereotypes, that her taste in men are wrong from top to bottom, and she's only an example of the greater pattern. She needs exactly whose league she and her friends think that she's beyond. She needs a square dude with a drama-free life. And she's only one of many for whom this is true. That's why I said she's an example of the greater pattern. We black men don't need to change a damn thing to be more attractive anymore. We don't need to make more money. We don't need to learn more swag, learn none of this stuff. At the current rate, we should actually refuse to be swagnificent in front of Western women while being naturally, however swagnificent we are otherwise, when they're not around. She needs to learn that if she doesn't actually have to live out her lyrics in her real life, then her man shouldn't have to either. You see, some of these ladies in that same circle of friends said that male rappers are allowed to not really live out their lyrics, while black female rappers are held to live them out in real life. In reality, Megan only dates and screws men who live out negativity in one form or another. One man had a whole family with another woman. If he wasn't the type to do it, he would not have been her type. She was mad. She hit him. She said that on her own video, explaining why there was that previous mugshot. However, nonetheless, he had to be that type that could and would have a baby with somebody else, or he would not have been her type, because she doesn't want guys that wouldn't bring this drama, and she's not the only one. This may be why she is now not with Lanes, as she's sick of the violence, but now she wants an irresponsible penis with not only no pullout game, but a negative pullout game. I mean, they were just at the club together in the picture. But if, in fact, she dates Future, we already know where that's going. He won't have sex unless it's raw and with a cream pie at the end. So mark my words. It would take... Let me tell you about a guy like him. If he could make as much money doing porn as he does rapping, he would do porn and specialize in cream pies. He's got the babies to prove him, not only the babies, but the baby mamas. This means Megan is going from simply one form of dysfunctional nigga to another. If they weren't dysfunctional porch monkeys to some extent, she would look down on them all as lames and not even really men. She has issues, and this doesn't mean that she needs to be shot through the foot for them, but it does mean they aren't to be ignored just because they don't warrant her being shot in the foot. Lanes obviously also has issues. The difference is that Megan actually is more symbolic of the majority of sisters than Lanes is of the majority of black men in North America. See, Lanes doesn't have to be ratchet for the black population to continue to exist. She doesn't have to be ratchet to have a black genetic legacy survive into the next generation. Because we men are not demanding that she or any women be this way as a whole. Most of us, especially those of us with medium value, let alone high value, are demanding the opposite. Lanes has to be the kind who would shoot her in the foot in order to have a genetic legacy within our race in the West. Because more than half of sisters, especially attractive ones, insist on such in our men, and anything less is lame. Even when she herself does not come from the background stereotypically associated with this dysfunction. So if it's not Lanes with the violence, then it's got to be Future with the irresponsible penis. Validated by a bunch of other women already, yet and still she's traumatized because she has covered for black men who didn't deserve it twice and did not get the same coverage in return. Ironically, it takes someone like her to be willing to not turn black men into white authorities. Now, in all honesty, I'm all in favor of black revolutionaries not turning each other into white authorities, because for them it's a revolution. But we cannot afford any more of this confusing conjunction between a black revolution and ratchet jigabosity. The idnists are not our revolutionaries. The former truly reformed Pookies may or may not be, but the ones that are still doing it are inefficiently reformed or even just ex but not reformed idnists are not the revolutionaries. They're too busy defying us, an original African functionality, to defy Master Charlie and his machine of oppression. So Megan is part of that confusion, having good intentions to not turn black men into white cops to be shot, but also unwilling to be in situations that don't require the attention of law enforcement, especially to be with black men that don't draw attention of police to themselves. She's insisted on this, and she ain't the only one. Would it be nice if she could address this through introspection and cure it? Sure. The issue here is that Lanes, who is one man and one type, is now some symbol of us, whereas, and Megan has been made the symbol of black female victimhood, yet in reality, black men who aren't like Lanes are called lames, and they're not with black women to whom they aren't related, because they aren't wanted by Western black women who are that attractive and young, even when they don't come from these backgrounds. So of course, many women are going to think most North American black men are such because in the end, those are the only ones they're willing to have anything to do with on a sincere level. Those are the only one, in other words, those are the only kind of guys they're really going to screw in many cases. A man they cannot blame, they will not lay. If he does not earn her blame, she will label him lame. And they will not want a man who isn't such until they have the first kids, until they first have the kids from that kind of guy. So if you ain't that way, that dysfunctional type of guy that could get yourself arrested or on child support, then you're already lame to them. There's no middle ground with them, and they don't want the middle guy that they think is lame until they have the other one's babies. Or in Megan's case, until they have Future's kids and also cannot walk anymore from all them bullets in their feet. See, even women that don't act like Megan are into lanes and such at the end of the day. The doctor, the attorney, the judges and engineers are into these kinds of dudes. And I know of a case in the Gulf Coast in which a judge married to a preacher gave up her family to get involved with a former defendant in her court. Of course, she lost her judgeship for that. And the preacher that married her left her and never looked back. This was back in the 1990s, so it was a bigger surprise back then. She was able to keep it out of certain headlines, but we knew about it. The pattern was already developing back then, and now the same pattern is on steroids. They don't want to admit this to you when they tell you that Megan's traumatized because, like so many other sisters in North America, she's unprotected by the very men she protects. Excuse me, why is it that she only needs to protect low-life porch monkeys to begin with? In her mind, it's because they're worthy of her protection. That's why. Know that if Doroba bin Wahad or Asada Shakur showed up on her doorstep and needed some sort of hiding from the man because they liberated some political prisoners, she wouldn't be able to grant that. When Master Charlie shows up with those FBI badges and says, "Where the hell are they? We know they came through here. Now tell us where they are right now." It would be good if she could keep her mouth shut. But I'm not sure she could. I'm not sure anybody could, really. Megan, if you want to protect black men that will protect you, there are some, but they will be at war with the man, and you'll have to sacrifice to protect them. Other Megans, you need to know the same thing. In the end, Megan might be traumatized, but she's either hiding something of her own from the police, or she's only protecting undeserving Tarzan chasers from Master Charlie. And either way, she doesn't get the same protection in return. In other words, the men that would protect her, she will not protect. She's not even around them. We thinking black men must understand that ladies like her will eventually stop protecting black men as however little they're already doing it, but it will be black men like us that they will gladly throw under the bus. I could tell a personal story from my own childhood neighborhood if I wanted to, but I already did that and I don't have time. The basic summary of it is that good kid from my neighborhood fell in love, or he got infatuated with some ratchet, and she got picked up for a robbery and turned him in for a murder. The reason he committed the murder was because at spending time with her, he really didn't know he had better options. And she pushed and pushed until he was listening to her and breaking into homes, and he got discovered one day and killed someone. And the cops would have never known who it was if she hadn't turned that boy in. She turned him in because she got caught shoplifting. But back to the major point here. Lanes isn't going to live with the effects of Megan's trauma. Nobody that does these things that's traumatized her is going to have to live with the effects of Megan's trauma. Men who traumatize these ladies in general don't have to live with the effects of the trauma of her or any other Megans out there. They're going to keep getting the best years and the bodies out of them until these guys get like Lil Wayne and decide that a non-black BBW is better than a sister. Thinking black men like you listening, who did no harm to anyone, are going to have to live with these effects and be told that it comes with the territory. But then if you bring any effects of your own traumas, you'll be told in a heartbeat to bounce because you got issues. So they don't have to work through their issues. They can bring theirs to you and you got to deal with it. You can actually have a legitimate issue through no fault of your own, and they'll tell you bounce because you got it. It's just another cycle of the same war. And while we can tell the truth that Megan appears to not have provoked this shooting, we must still not lose sight of the fact that the wicked witches of the West, even some that call themselves Muslimas, are at war with us for being normal guys with normal genitalia to whom they think that Allah gave an unfair advantage. Even in being fair, don't drop your guard. Fight to win. I hope that one day this won't be true anymore. In the meantime, I hope it helps you. The blackest of the black, signing black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual thinking male power just cause they don't like it.